KU filled out their entire group of specialists, kicker, punter, long snapper, all transfers in. Let's break them down.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? Derek Johnson here. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Thanks for making it your first listen every day, and thank you to everydayers catching each and every episode of the show. Thank you also for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. On today's episode of the show, we're breaking down the specialists that are joining KU football out of the transfer portal as they added a new punter, a new kicker, and a new long snapper out of the punter. So we'll break them down and get into their game as much as we possibly can here. And then we'll get to what it means for KU overall in the transfer portal and their quest to completing the roster here. Let's start right there with the news. KU obviously adding all three of these players. So you have Matthew Gill. He is a punter from Australia. It tends to work out for a lot of different programs. And obviously KU's gone there for Damon Greaves, which that was he continued to improve, but KU found an upgrade last year at the punter position. But so you have Gill coming in from Australia, and tough to find a lot on Gill necessarily, so that'll be a little bit of an unknown. Then you have Rino, or I wish it was Rino. I think it's pronounced Reno Monteforte, who was at Notre Dame and then went to Cal right after that. He'll have 1 year left as a long snapper. Again, I don't really have much info or stats for you on the long snapping side of things. And then this one you do have a little bit of stats on. That would be Martin Connington. And Martin Connington is a kicker who's originally from Meridian, Idaho. He spent 2 seasons at Michigan State. So he's going to be a redshirt sophomore in 2026. That gives him 3 years left at Kansas. And I can't help but wonder, going after a guy, I don't know if this is just the cherry on top or if it's intentional, but after having a couple years where you had like 1 year guys at kicker, obviously you brought in Seth Keller in 2023. You had Owen Pieper-Gertis in 2024 as the player that you didn't bring in. He was there, but he had 1 year left by that point. And then you have this past year with Leif Marjan, to where you're bringing in a lot of like 1 year guys at the kicker position, right? And you're kind of at a position where, are you tired of cycling through that? And so maybe you look to get somebody who has multiple years left. And that's kind of a bonus here with Martin Connington, that he can give you potentially 3 more years. So I also would say this, like, I don't know how expensive or inexpensive these are in comparison to other players at their position. Just given the fact that you're getting a kicker from another power university that was a former highly rated high school recruit at the kicker position, I wonder if this was a little bit more of a spend at the kicker position than, say, your average spend at the kicker position. And I actually think that makes sense philosophically with when you look at Lance Leipold's kind of propensity to play a little bit more conservative, to take longer field goals over short 4th down attempts. It makes more sense to invest a little bit more in the kicker if that's what you're going to do. And I thought that's what they did with Leif Marjan, and I thought it worked out until obviously the end, and he kind of got hurt in the Arizona game and wasn't the same from then on. But for the most part, it worked out there, right? So let's get a little bit more into their games, at least what we know or what we can get into about at least Connington next. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, which, hey, we got wildcard weekend here. FanDuel's officially in playoff mode. Every game during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel's giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. So you can bet on the college football playoff, you can bet on the NFL, you can bet on NBA, NHL. There's so many things going on right now. You can even get in on the college basketball action. So you can get Kansas minus 3.5 at West Virginia. It's Kansas minus 205 on the money line. The over-under is sitting at 135.5. They'll have player props, I'd imagine, up in the morning. I'm recording this on Friday night. So you make your picks, then apply your profit boost to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling here. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day with FanDuel. Thanks again for joining us here on Locked On Jayhawks. So a little bit on the scouting report of these players. Again, I don't really have much on Monteforte as a long snapper, but he was at 2 Power 4 universities. He was at a team who played for the national title, so fine by me, right? Also don't really have anything on Gill. He wasn't playing. I mean, he was in Australia, part of like an academy out there. Now, he's a big guy. I think he's like 6'3", and I don't know, being in Australia, 6'3", is it safe to assume he's like a rugby player as well? Like, I don't know. Is there something you can do with fake punts there maybe? But yeah, tough to kind of take away too much. Now, Connington, we do have some info here, right? So Connington was a 3-star recruit out of high school, which is actually pretty high considering you're a kicker. He was the number 7 rated kicker in the country, according to 24/7 Sports. So this was one of the better kicker prospects coming out of high school, which, probably isn't as heavily scouted as some of these other positions, but still impressive. He then redshirted in 2024 at Michigan State. And then in 2025, he takes over the job as a redshirt frosh. He goes 27 of 28 on PATs. I don't know if he missed a PAT or if it got blocked. And then he went 12 of 16 on field goals. 75% on field goals, a little lower than you would want it, but it's one of those things where you're a redshirt freshman starting and you can see some of the, like, there's some guys who go 12 of 16. They just don't have the leg. Like, this is one of those things where it's like you can see the potential here. So he goes 6 of 7 on kicks, 20 to 29. Again, I don't know if one of them was blocked. 5 of 5 from 30 to 39 yards. You want to see consistency there. He missed his one between 40 to 49, and then just 1 of 3 on 50 plus. The 50-yarder, though, was really impressive. They were down 24 to 21 to Boston College late in the third quarter, and he tied the game. So a little bit of pressure there. And then there in the fourth quarter, he makes like a 30, I forget if it's 36 or 39 to take the lead with a little pressure there, and what was eventually a double overtime win for the Spartans. So I think it's safe to assume, a highly recruited kicker out of high school, goes 12 of 16 his first year, where you have some flashes of some good stuff, but still looking to improve some stuff. I think that's a good upside swing for KU, that, you can get a better version of him and then get multiple years of him. I think this is going to be a good kicker addition for KU. Now, on kickoffs, he averaged 62 yards per kickoff. Out of comparison, Leif Marjan and Dane Effred combined for 63.7 per kickoff. So not that far off there, but the big difference here is this. So with Connington, 37 kickoffs, he had 19 touchbacks. So a little above 50% of his kickoffs are touchbacks. Now, some of that could be philosophical. Some of it could be coaching, what they do or don't want you to do. But KU had 41 touchbacks on 67 kickoffs this year. So closer to that, 2/3 range for KU. So we'll see if he can improve some of those things. But again, this was a redshirt freshman. If you're comparing him to Leif Marjan, who was a senior, there's a bit of a growth path there that you could possibly have with Connington. So where does this put KU overall in their roster search for adding more players as well in the specialist room? That next. Thanks again for joining us here on Locked On Jayhawks. Don't forget to check out all of our other episodes. Nick Morrow committing, Jabril Alameen committing. We had a bunch of episodes yesterday, so check all out the football commitment videos here on Locked On Jayhawks. Okay, so this obviously, I would imagine, if you're going out in the transfer portal to get a kicker, punter, and long snapper, like, it's one thing to be like, hey, we added a high school recruit, or we added a walk-on or something, like we're going to add somebody else. You're not going to add 2 transfer portal kickers. You're not going to add 2 transfer portal punters or 2 transfer portal long snappers. Sure, you'll probably add one as a walk-on. Sure, you'll probably open, whatever. Or I guess, I don't know, is walk-ons a thing now? Maybe that makes it a little bit different. But there's some that are grandfathered in. I don't know if KU has on the roster. Point being, you're not going to have a bunch of those guys on the team, right? So I think probably safe to assume you're done there. Maybe if you really feel it, you bring in one more guy that can just be a backup to both positions. I don't know. But I have KU around, and again, this isn't an exact science because you don't know which guys might have, earned their way to a scholarship, right? Did you have a grandfathered walk-on who has now earned a scholarship at some point here for KU? But I have KU sitting at, prior to, because we have 2 more commitment videos we're going to churn out tonight. When those get added in here, I think it'll be up to 80, just off a short count there, which means that, you can go up to, 105. I don't think KU is going to do that. 85 was the number that teams are previously at before the rev share stuff. KU probably wants to be around there, but there's no, if you get to 85 and there's 2 really good players who you want to add, you don't stop there. You say, okay, we'll just play with 87 this year. The flip side is you could be like, hey, we'll play with 83 this year, right? If we get to 83 and we feel good about the roster and, maybe the difference of us adding the 83rd player is saying, hey, we're not going to use the funds we would be using to sign an 84th and 85th player. We'll use a little extra funds to make that 83rd edition we have a better player. Then you do that. So there's a little bit of flexibility here, but I think point being, we're getting to the final hours of this for KU. We're down to a point where it's going to be single digit additions, where it's going to be a handful of additions for KU, and things are starting to turn down, and then you'll be able to focus on spring football if you're Lance Leipold and the Jayhawks. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page, where you can like and subscribe to the show. Check out all our commitment videos, as well as our KU preview against West Virginia. See you next time.